Um, Coming back, Metzela. He graduated from the program last year, and he's now working in Washington, D.C. So, and he worked on an interesting project when he was with us. So I thought that he might want to share it over the next 15 minutes or so. Metzela, you could share your screen, do whatever you need to do.
Thank you very much, Rob.
Thanks.
All right, good afternoon. Good morning, actually. Thank you very much for having me. Just off the bat, just a disclaimer that I'm here representing myself and I'm not speaking in any way on behalf of...
I didn't mention any company or anything.
Yeah, so. Right. So this is, I think, for me, the most interesting time to both be in the quantitative space, technology space, and in finance, really. Predominantly based on the fact that technology is pushing a lot of what we normally took as taken to the forefront. We're having a lot of changes, and learning about smart contracts for me was also propelled by just that. Trying to understand exactly where the technology is taking us and what really it's all about. So I'll just start off with simple basics, the history of it that we all know, I believe, that it is just a computer protocol, not just, but a computer protocol that provides us an ability to digitally verify, enforce, as well as negotiate and formalize as a form of trust, right? We have Nick Szabo that formalized this in the Formalizing and Securing Relationships on Public Networks paper, which is effectively giving us a coded way or manner or logic of contractual agreements. And then we had Vitalik come in with ETHEREUM, which I believe effectively opened the door for us for a lot of opportunities to create, learn, as well as understand. So my overview of ETHEREUM of smart contracts is based in this way. There's a backward-looking manner that one could take. That is to say, looking at the state of the data and understanding it. And then there's a forward-looking, which is where majority of the current development is also taking place, which is creating tools and resources that can actually enable the unearthing of value in areas that weren't predominantly present. So within ETHEREUM, base token, a smart contract, you have the ERC20 smart contract or ERC20 protocol, which is actually considered the standard protocol with regards to how the contracts, the logic of the contracts are written. You could think of it as guidelines of how a contract is supposed to go. And the most important functions are those listed on the left, which is the total supply function, which would give you the total supply within that particular contract that you're working on, the balance that exists, initiating a transfer or initiating a transfer from approvals and as well as allowances. Now, what was interesting to us, or to me, predominantly why I went in this was, what data can we get from these interactions? Because from every single interaction or from every single event that is unearthed, you're going to get a value of information that is supposed to give us something, or at least that we'll be able to unearth something of value from. So this is where the metadata came in, where you have different segments of the data sets, whether it's block data, the transactions, the logs data set, the contracts, the traces, etc. And what was most important or interesting to us was trying first to understand how to access the data set, right? So just to step back a bit, in order to be able to access the data set, a contract will be initiated or will actually be called on through, whether you're writing it in Solidity, you will have the data stored probably in Etherscan, for example. Now, in order for you to truly understand what the contract is doing or how the contract is being used, the only way to do that, or the most insightful way to do that, would be actually to look at the transaction level data or the logs level data. And that is what we aimed to do within the project, well, during my time when we were working through the project. Now, these are the key elements that we considered within that. You will agree with me that the most important or the most challenging part of it for a certain component would be, first of all, choosing which contract you find of value, right? So in our instance, as I will explain later, which one we actually looked at. But after choosing which one, now it's a matter of being able to make sense of some of the metadata that you're getting, and which is where the key value or the key insight was in terms of understanding what will the log level data sets give us much more insightful information from how the contracts are being used, as opposed to probably some of the token transfer data set. And this is where we spend a great deal of time exploring different various ways in terms of how to actually access the data set into human readable form, because predominantly majority of it is stored in hexadecimal strings, and you need to be able to understand and convert that into a manner in which would make sense to you as the person trying to get insights from the data set. So what was most interesting, what we found of key interest from this particular perspective is that, first and foremost, initially when we were working on this, finding an optimal way to get the logs data set or make sense of the data set was quite tricky. This is predominantly based on the fact that some of those transactions or some of the contracts that you're looking at, they are not so clearly stated in terms of how they're actually being used or how they're actually supposed to be, well, it's clear how they're supposed to be operating. However, some of the fields in them, there's a lot of dirty, missing values that you can't necessarily make good sense of. So looking at this particular context of it, we decided that understanding the value of smart contracts, inherently in themselves, they are not of true value unless they can connect with off-chain data sets, right? This is being able to connect with external data sets, such as if you're in a trading space, we're talking some exchange level, pricing level data sets. If you're probably working on a token that requires some temperature level data sets, that means connecting with smart instruments and such. And therefore, we noted that looking at the Chainlink dataset, which is an oracle that pretty much assists or enables current smart contract protocols to actually interact with the off-chain datasets, you're able to gain valuable insights. So here I just provide an overview, a simple overview of some of the metrics or insights that one could be able to actually discern from the datasets. You could be able to match out how much gas is used, the verified contracts, utilization of them, as well as various correlative metrics, as you can see on the right-hand side. I think this is not exhaustive, and going back to the conversations, presentation of Sri that he mentioned, it is at this point that you could be able to employ various interesting methodologies from the machine learning space, from the AI space, in order to be able to gain insights from it. What is most critical about, what we found most critical about or interesting about smart contracts is that they require oracles in order for them to have value in the real world. And it is this reason that we had decided to actually have a look at Chainlink and truly understand, this is from a backward looking perspective of how the token is actually, how the contracts actually get interacted with. And furthermore, to understand how the outputs are influenced by that. So this is a critical component of the smart contract ecosystem that I believe that for anyone that's looking to do further analysis on it, they would find it quite useful. So I'll come to the applications, which I believe these are the key components, which to me give value to the current technology we're looking at. So we have one of the key ones that I wish just to highlight in this particular presentation, bonding curves and curation markets, which effectively give us a coordination or an ability to be able to coordinate and beneficiate from shared value. A simple analogy of this is seen in savings cooperatives in emerging market economies, where you have a lot of unbanked people sort of coming together to effectively find a way to actually finance themselves in different respects. However, I think the current smart contract technology has actually given a formal process that can actually enable this to be formalized in a sense. What does this mean and who cares about this? This means that you actually have an actual technological system or technological protocol that could actually enable enhancements of credit extension to the unbanked, which is a very big opportunity even within the emerging market economies. Over that, further than that, you have donor project management, which creates also a greater component of how they can be utilized. One of the most interesting components that has recently come up that I'll just briefly speak to is recent evidence that shows that automated market makers can actually enable fiat exchange without need of intermediaries. And this is a recent paper, I believe, that I actually came at the view of, that initially validates the fact that with the ability to interact with off-chain datasets or protocols, then you're able to unearth much greater value from smart contracts and how they operate and how much value they can have. Simple conclusions that I could draw is was that oracles enable a diverse possibility of smart contract use cases. Consensus as a service provision is actually what underlies Ethereum, and therefore they enable that. And the use cases are truly beyond what we can actually imagine right now once Web 3.0 actually takes even greater effect. It's given us an opportunity to develop novel value exchange systems. And I think I'll just stress this point in this sense. Predominantly majority of what we spend a lot of time or sometimes concentrate on was in effect sometimes looking backward and reporting on existence of how things were. But I think that with smart contracts and in the manner in which we interacted with them within the project was actually to explore going forward what avenues can be opened with them. And that particular process is a development process, which takes time. More than anything else, they've unlocked the opportunity from a macro and micro level to understand the interactions of different ecosystems that exist, and which is what I think was of great value from us. So the overarching perspective of this was just to give a highlight of how we were looking at the smart contracts, the key areas which we actually concentrating on, which is effectively, first of all, understanding the event level, log level, and trace level data sets to understand how the technology that's interacting with the contracts are. And then secondly, and most importantly of all, looking forward in terms of how the contracts or smart contract can be developed to actually unearth new value. So I think in high level, that's what I had to share today. I believe I was in time.
Yeah, very efficient as usual. But